Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tom. I am driving along here and I wanted to get a few thoughts out. So yesterday I was watching the Dave Rubin show. He had on Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro. As you could imagine, this wasn't exactly lightweight intellectualism. They were talking about a bevy of issues. They were talking about a lot of their own beliefs about religion and greater meaning in the world, which I think that type of stuff is very important, whether you're religious or not, whether you're Christian, Jewish, whatever it might be, to find a way to serve a higher purpose, even if that purpose isn't religious in its nature. That purpose can be just making the world a better place. That purpose could be finding any issue that you're passionate about. Maybe it's orphans. Maybe you don't like the foster care system, so you set out to make it better. But if you discover purpose in your life, then you get direction, you get focus. I mean, since I started doing FFR News and this YouTube channel, I've had so much purpose in my life. I feel like, one, it's something I really enjoy doing. I really do enjoy it. I think I'm pretty good at it. I pride myself on using philosophy and attempting to be an intellectual person. I'm not saying I'm always right, but I do live my life in a way where I always seek and attempt to discover truth. And I think for me that's a very important thing. And the purpose behind that is I am attempting to discover truth, and I am sharing what I find with the world with the objective of making the world a better place. But something dawned on me when they were just the fact that they were having the conversation, that liberty is winning. And let me tell you why. I remember there was a time, especially when I was younger, and obviously they try to push this culture now from the top, the establishment, right? This very politically correct culture. And the mainstream media, they were the gatekeepers, and everyone was afraid, right? I mean, if the New York Times wrote a hit piece on you that said, you're a racist, maybe in 2007, right? 2005, whatever it might be, people were terrified of that. I mean, they used these hit pieces to destroy people. They were weaponized, and something has changed in America, and you could feel the change. People aren't afraid anymore. And I was thinking about Trump as the movement that he has speared on, because he is certainly an imperfect vessel. But I think more than his policies, the greatest impact, well, one of the greatest impact that Trump is having on America, what his ultimate legacy should be. I mean, one should be the exposure, whether it's him or the grassroots media doing it, the exposure of the deep state and how corrupt the American unchecked bureaucracies are: FBI, NSA, CSA, CIA, EPA, Department of Education, right? The corruption is just so widespread in the American government. But the other thing is what he's done to culture, because quite frankly, Trump came onto the scene and he doesn't give a fuck. I mean, Trump came onto the scene and he said, this is what I'm going to say, and you could call me racist and you could call me a Nazi, and I don't care, I'm going to say it. And then something powerful happened, because what had always happened is, if you were like Trump, if you just said whatever was on your mind, the media would just destroy you, right? I mean, that was career suicide, social suicide. And Trump just came in and he started saying whatever he wanted to say, and the media attempted to destroy him, and then something powerful happened. He wasn't destroyed. In fact, he was a little bit more like Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Strike me down now, and I will become more powerful than you can ever imagine. And they tried to strike him down, and the result is the movement becoming more powerful than he could ever imagine. And the reason for that is people stopped being afraid. They said, wait a second, we could speak truth to power, right? And not the truth that the media tries to project, right? This is racist, this is xenophobic. No, you could have a talk about immigration, and you could talk about the natural contradiction of having a welfare state paired with open borders, right? Because, when our grandparents came to America, whatever it might be, your grandparents, your parents, your great-grandparents, there was something called rugged individualism. Yeah, you could come to America, but you better find a job, you better pick yourself up by your bootstraps, because the state's not coming to bail you out, right? The state's not going to rob other people of their money at threat of imprisonment and then redistribute it to you. So yeah, they came here as immigrants, but they were expected to take care of themselves. And if they couldn't take care of themselves, you better be part of a local community, right? You better join your local church group, whatever it might be. You better join your local synagogue, you better join your local just community gatherings, because if you don't, there was no one to bail you out. So that's just another thing the state has destroyed community in America. But Trump has really destroyed this bullshit political correct culture that stops people from speaking truth, right? I mean, Jordan Peterson's a great example. Agree with him, disagree with him. I mean, all he does is he talks about the actual scientific evidence of biological differences between men and women. And the mainstream media, because they try to push identity politics, I mean, they made it where you really can't talk about these things. And to think there's not biological differences between people, of course, is just an absurdity, right? I mean, you don't see a lot of tiny Jewish men playing in the NBA, right? You see a lot of black men. Well, black men tend to be more physically gifted, so you see them playing in the NBA. So, of course, there's biological differences in people. Of course, there's biological differences between men and women, and that doesn't mean that men are women. That doesn't mean men are better, that women are better. It just means that they're different. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. The point is that it dawned on me that we are winning. I mean, you look at this politically correct culture, and all it does is it talks about how much we need diversity, except it's talking about the most racist diversity that there is in actuality, because the diversity that's pushed from the establishment, which is, again, look at these narratives that we're destroying, right? This narrative that conservative or libertarian, right-leaning white males, Christian white males, hold institutional power, right? Well, the progressive left, which, again, I have argued ad nauseum, is actually the regressive left that has adopted or been infiltrated. What used to be a good movement has been infiltrated by postmodernism, which is an offshoot of cultural Marxism. Well, these cultural Marxists who call themselves progressives control Silicon Valley, right? We saw from the undercover videos, James O'Keefe, right-leaning people get censored on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Google, right? Right-leaning people get demonetized. Or not even just right-leaning people, just anyone who thinks freely. It's just anyone who thinks differently than the politically correct thoughts you're supposed to have by the controlling establishment, you have to be censored. And the mainstream media is completely controlled by this cultural Marxist, infiltrated, claims to be progressive left, right? 90% of coverage of Trump is negative. I'm negative on him at times too, although I am a Trump supporter. But I mean, if you're being 90% negative all the time, you're not being intellectually honest. You're not seeking truth. You are just trying to push an ideology. You're trying to push a political agenda. Hollywood, which we've seen the culture that comes out of Hollywood, right? Oh, they love to virtue signal, except when they're off camera and they're raping everyone that walks, whether that be men, women, doesn't matter. We got Terry Crews. He's at a party and powerful executives are walking up to him and grabbing him by the balls. I mean, these people are so corrupt. They are so lacking in virtue, and this progressive cultural Marxist left that controls social media, that controls Hollywood, that controls the mainstream media, likes to lecture us about what virtue is. And of course they control academia, and they do that because the grants funnel down from the Soros Institute. They funnel down from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, from the Tides Foundation, from the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Endowment. Billions, 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 trillions of dollars of grants. You just go to their pages, go to the Rockefeller Foundation, look up their donations, and type in something like, type in feminism, social justice, environmentalism. It's all pushed from the top, this progressive PC garbage. So, Trump has completely shattered people's fear. And you see this now because this regressive ideology, which is all about lack of diversity, right? No diversity of thought. You could have a different skin color, that's fine. But if you're a black conservative, you're the most evil man on the planet to these people, right? Ben Carson's the most evil man on the planet. They call him an Uncle Tom. They call him a coon. This is what they do. Because it's all about, we saw this at Google, right? James Damore wrote the Google diversity memo about how the whole memo was about how there is no diversity of thought, that it's just this cultural Marxist progressive echo chamber. And the result of that was they proved him right. They fired him for pointing out that you're not allowed to think differently. They said, don't you think differently, James? Don't you have free thought? We can't have that type of diversity. So this politically correct culture has just been completely shattered. And what Trump has done to culture, whether it's inadvertent or advertent, it doesn't even matter. He has completely empowered free thinkers to speak and not be afraid to speak truth to power against this totalitarian left that has emerged a lot through the Obama. I mean, it's been building for a long time, but really, really got out of control through the Obama years. This politically correct culture that stifles free thought, where you have to walk on eggshells, that they tell you you have to worry about microaggressions, that even if you're not racist, you're racist, so no matter what you say, you better realize you're racist. And because of that, they're actually teaching people to be racist, right? You should walk on eggshells around people who have different color skin. Oh no, you have different skin color? I can't speak honestly to you. No, that's racist. If you're a black person and you're an asshole, I'll tell you you're an asshole. And if you're a white person and you're an asshole, I'll tell you you're an asshole. So this politically correct microaggression bullshit culture, and apologize for my language this video, but when you're talking about PC culture, you just gotta unleash. And you see them completely stifle, right? You can't have any diversity of thought. You have any diversity of thought, right? This progressive cultural Marxist left that completely just eats their own. Brett Weinstein, his red pill moment was, he was a progressive professor. He believed in all these progressive causes. And at Evergreen State University, or State College, they had a No Whites Day, where white people weren't allowed on campus. And he was physically intimidated for showing up on campus for being white. This is the antithesis of the message of Martin Luther King Jr. So he had his red pill moment. He said, this isn't progressive, this is authoritarian. He had his red pill moment. And you see that because the mainstream, the left, they eat their own, this progressive movement. And anyone who has any variation, any deviance in thought that goes against the narrative is completely condemned. Right away, you go from being a progressive to being an alt-right Nazi. And so I was watching the Dave Rubin show, and it completely dawned on me. You had an Orthodox Jew, a conservative Orthodox Jew, a libertarian, a gay libertarian, right? Dave Rubin is a gay libertarian. So you have a conservative Orthodox Jew, a man who allows other men to penetrate him from behind, and I only say that because that's, Orthodox Jew, right? That's so conservative. And then you have a Christian conservative or a Christian intellectual in Jordan Peterson. And the three of these guys have absolute respect for each other. They don't agree with each other on everything, right? Dave Rubin's sitting there saying, yeah, I smoke pot, I have gay sex, You would think, right? If conservatives and libertarians were the ones who weren't tolerant, Ben Shapiro, how could you say that? I'm an Orthodox Jew. But no, these men have absolute respect for each other because they share classical, ready? Judeo-Christian Western values. They share the values that made the West great in the first place. Not diversity in terms of different skin color. Diversity in thought. That you can speak freely, that you can disagree with people, that you should have intellectual conversations with people who disagree with you. Because here's an idea, ready? They might just know something that you don't know. You might just learn something in speaking with Jordan Peterson. You might just learn something in speaking with Ben Shapiro. By the way, and you might just learn something in speaking with Dave Rubin, who is brilliant. And I do suggest you watch his show because he has such a wide variety of intellectual thinkers. He will have your social justice warrior on one day. He will have your classical Christian-driven conservative on the next day. And I fall somewhere in the middle of all these people. It's hard to pin me down ideologically speaking. I would certainly question Ben Shapiro's notion of individual liberty, but I think he's a brilliant person, and I do admire him. I certainly question a lot of what Jordan Peterson says, but the intellectual bravery that comes out of that man, the drive, the confidence, the knowing that he believes, the belief in what he says is truly inspirational. And then Dave Rubin, just his ability to listen to people from all different perspectives and give his perspective, but you see him evolve over time. He hears these perspectives and you see his ideology shift. And these are all very inspirational people, but it shows the difference between this establishment-pushed, mainstream PC culture, which claims to be for diversity, but stifles all diversity of thought, versus Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin and this YouTube culture of people who think differently but are more than happy to hear out other points of view, are more than happy to have conversations with people who think differently. And you don't think less of them, right? All these people that they claim are these alt-right Nazis, they all respect Dave Rubin to death. He's a gay atheist libertarian. These hateful conservatives, these hateful libertarians respect him to death. So let me ask you, what group really stands for diversity and what group is authoritarian? This ideology they push, this collectivist PC culture, it springs from the same ideology that led to the mass deaths of millions and millions of people in the 20th century. It's cultural Marxism. It's not about liberty. The feminism they push isn't about the liberation of women. The feminism they push derives from cultural Marxism. If you read the Communist Manifesto, one of the key pillars is the destruction of the family. And that's what these people stand for. Understand that the mainstream media, what is her name? Joy Reid? Joy Reid? I think it's Joy Reid. Was triggered by Donald Trump's State of the Union address because he talked about the restoring of the American family. Can you imagine how twisted your ideology has to be that talking about family as a good thing is destructive? If you want to know what has happened to the deterioration of American culture in the last 50 years, look no further than the percentage of people who are raised without two married parents. That is the single biggest cause of the deterioration of American culture. And you are statistically much more likely to be successful in life, to rise to the middle class, if you just have two parents that are married. But this cultural Marxism has been pushed for so long, and to, yes, some degree it's good, right? I will always support a woman. Listen, if you're with a man and he's becoming truly abusive, if he's physically abusive, if he is truly verbally abusive, then leave him. But this culture that's pushed that, as soon as you're unhappy, you should leave a marriage. There's something bigger than ourselves in life. It's children, doing what's better for them. It's making a vow, living your life with honor. I made a vow to my wife, and she drives me crazy a lot of the time. And every time she drives me crazy, I remind myself of my vow I made to her. And how much I respect that in spite of myself driving her crazy, right? This YouTube stuff I do scares her because people are authoritarian. They will attack us. But no matter how much I might drive her crazy and she'll voice that to me, I respect her to death because she made this vow to me and she is so loyal to me. And she is so unwavering. And there is so much power in that. My belief derives from the strength that she gives me, knowing that no matter what, that if I'm rejected out here in YouTube land, if I'm rejected out in the real world, she tells me it's okay. She'll tell me if she thinks I'm an idiot, but she tells me if it's okay. So there's this culture, cultural Marxism that has pushed the destruction of the American family, that has pushed the destruction of free thought, of thinking differently. It's pushed this PC culture. And you see that we are shattering the mold. People are waking up in droves and they're rejecting this mainstream narrative. And this is the most powerful thing of the Trump era. And again, I don't even know if it's cognizant or if it just happens because he's just so polarizing that he just doesn't care. He says what he believes. But the PC culture has been completely shattered, and it is empowering humanity. It is leading human awakening. People might not realize it because we're in the middle of it. But just like the Gutenberg press led to the Protestant Reformation, it led to the Italian Renaissance, the greatest spread and gain of culture in human history that spread throughout the world, that led to the American Revolution. John Locke coming up with the idea of natural law, Thomas Paine writing Common Sense, talking about natural law, talking about how we didn't need to be ruled by a hereditary monarchy in England, that we could break free and rule ourselves. These intellectual revolutions that have happened throughout human history, that is happening again because after the intellectual revolution happened, the ruling class gained control of advancements in modern technology, and they gained control of television, and they gained control of the education system, and they gained control of radio, and they gained control of social media. And they were able to create this two-party political system that, well, what masquerades as a two-party system, that's really a one-party system where they don't actually offer us actual freedom. They don't offer us liberty. They offer us the illusion of liberty, and they push this military-industrial complex on us, and they say that patriotism is always supporting war. Nah, patriotism is questioning war, which is why I question war, which is why I support Donald Trump, but we need to pull out of the Middle East, why he's wrong in Yemen, why we shouldn't be in the Middle East anymore. We've been in the Middle East since I was a boy, and I'm sick of it. Patriotism is questioning authority. The right war isn't the war that the government tells you to go to. The right war is when you realize that the government is the enemy. And the war is taking place right now, but it's intellectual. It's intellectual revolution because we've taken control of the narrative. These tools, social media, that were used to become the greatest spy apparatus in the history of humankind, something George Orwell could have never imagined. They've been turned against the establishment, and we are using them as tools. They were tools of our damnation, and now they are tools of our liberation. We are in the midst of a modern renaissance, human awakening on a scale of which the world has never seen. And the mainstream establishment, they don't control the narrative anymore, and just look at it. Because the Rubin talk with Shapiro and Peterson was a microcosm. That we don't have to be afraid anymore. And people aren't afraid. Call me a racist. Come after me. Imprison me. Kill me. I don't care. Give me liberty or give me death.